welcome back to another Stoneforge gaming video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Garden of More box set from Games Workshop, and this is the Warhammer Fantasy version. Now I know you can get this in the Warhammer Age of Sigmar box set now as well, and I believe it's roughly the same price as it always was. You can still get this on their website, but I got the version that came out when they were still doing Warhammer Fantasy. I think they really just repackaged it to have that sort of new Age of Sigmar look. But you can see as we open it up here, there's just a stack of plastic in here. There is just tons of stuff, tons of bits and bobs. We get several buildings, some statues, we get some fencing here, some really cool fencing actually, and you can see all the little details. It's very Warhammer, it's very Warhammer Fantasy, which is very cool. Lots of skulls. Granted, in a graveyard that actually works to your advantage, whereas sometimes the skull motif that shows up in Warhammer doesn't always work. But for this, where it's a graveyard, it really kind of comes through really well. So you can see the buildings are all multi-part plastic pieces that you can all put together. Again, plastic glue works really well for these. That's how I put them together. But you can see all of the different little details. It's actually kind of nice. There's a little bit of a rose motif going on. Now, in theirs, they painted them up with a purple look. I do like that front gate because it's got that big skull, and then there's actually it looks very much like a Sigmar or Sigmarite cross or something like that, but it's still pretty cool. And this is still very easily usable for any particular game. I don't feel like it's too over the top with the Warhammer motifs, as it were, to be still usable in some of the other games, like say Kings of War or skirmish games or anything like that. It's still really going to have that awesome sort of very dark, grim, which again Warhammer excels at, but that sort of a look to it. Now, this is actually one of the things that I really enjoyed about this box set was the fact that each one of these buildings comes on their own separate little base, more or less, and it's actually really highly detailed sculpted bases that have stone textures all done up in them, or gravel textures, whatever else. And that is really, really cool. I do like this. The instruction manual for this is really, really helpful. Actually, when I started going through it, I realized I was kind of putting stuff together incorrectly. So this, unlike some of their other instruction manuals, are really, really nice. They come together really, really well. And so I really do think, and I do like that shot of the overall big picture. Now, granted, because this is all modular, that's the other thing I love about this. You don't have to put it all together and then glue it all together. It's all modular. All of the buildings are modular. You can just kind of go to town and have it all together and then kind of separate it out. So if you're wanting to do a little very compact like this, like a little tiny compact graveyard, you can do that. Or if you want to spread it out more and have like a larger graveyard and maybe have some other stuff in there, it works really well for that as well. Now, this whole set went together really, really nicely. The plastics, unlike some of the other GW kits that I've put together for their scenery in the past, this kit is phenomenal. There's so much great detail. There's so much awesome stuff, and there's not too many fiddly bits. There are some small pieces here and there, but you just get a little bit of plastic glue, and you're gonna be all set. Each one of the fence pieces I left separate. Now, I've seen some people where they'll put them together or they'll leave them apart, but again, for my gaming group, modularity is key. So I just left this all separate, and then you can put them together however you want to for multiple different scenarios and multiple different games, which is kind of also one of the big bonuses about this set is you don't have to put it all together. You can just set it up however you want to. There's some really cool stuff. I love the texture, the stone texture that they put on here. That's really cool. The little details of all the spikes and stuff like that. And one of the things that they did that was really good was they kept the motifs kind of running through the entire set. So you have the skulls, you have the roses, you have the spiky bits here and there. Again, very, very much Warhammer Fantasy in keeping with that, but also in keeping with just, I don't know, sort of a gothic style graveyard. And I am a huge fan of Gothic architecture in general, so this kind of hits both of those for me. So you can see there's just a big the gates here are actually really really nice, but the buildings themselves are very very cool as well. Now I left each one of these separate. They are two different pieces. They are basically the base and then the top. So in my thinking, which I love this, in my thought process, you can have them, like if you want to have movement units rather that move through the graveyard, you can actually have them just like walk through and not have to move the base of it, but you can actually leave that there and just basically show that the unit is moving around or whatever. And then when it comes to, you can just put the top or the building itself right back on there. So some of the different mausoleums and stuff, I think it's a really, really awesome setup that they did. Now, those gargoyles are a little bit fiddly on the front there. Those are actually separate pieces, so you'll have to be very careful. I almost completely forgot that they were even supposed to go on there. That's one of the things where that instruction booklet came in very handy, so you'll definitely want to keep that on hand. But overall, I love the way the slate stone roofs and the Gothic sort of minarets on the top of that there, just the pointed sort of finials that they have coming up off the top of there. It just captures that look for me. Now the one thing you do got to watch is with this little particular part is I did have some of those spiky bits that broke off. Now it's fine because it's a graveyard and maybe it's supposed to be in a bit of disrepair. Obviously there's a bunch of vines and rose bushes growing all over the place, so it can't be that nice, but you will have to watch that. Those little spikes can be pretty fiddly. I love this statue, by the way. I just really do. I think it's very much in keeping with both Warhammer Fantasy and just that type of Gothic fantasy sort of horror-esque graveyard, and it'd be just that sort of Grim Reaper look to it. Now, these are actually some of the pieces that a lot of people will leave these off. They're little gravestones. I left, well, a lot of people glue them down. I left them off because I'm actually going to use them for bits and pieces here. You guys have seen my graveyard pieces in the past, and I have done up some of those, and I'm actually going to use these as part of a multi-basing thing for Kings of War for a unit of skeletons, because there's one of them that is actually crawling up out of the ground, and so I'm going to have a graveyard behind it, so it'll kind of have that little bit of a diorama-esque feel to it. I do like this little raven here. I wish that there was, I mean, granted, you can go online and buy a bunch of this sort of stuff, but like I like the birds because there's very few places that actually sell to scale birds. So like for instance, I believe on the giant kit it was that had there was like a vulture or something like that, and then there was something along those lines, but they've done those here and there, but I want to get a bunch of them just because I like having birds on stuff, because especially birds or like sort of vulture like birds or carrion birds that would be eating on flesh, because it really kind of gives that very very dark tone to, say, a fantasy sort of look. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this look at the Garden of Mor, or this graveyard set, if you just want to look at it that way for your fantasy games. Again, the price is, in my opinion, is very doable. I believe it's like $60-70 or something like that, and you get a ton of awesome looking terrain. So if you guys get a chance, you see it on eBay, or you decide to go over to Games Workshop site, I would suggest picking it up. It's a very awesome set.